The subject property is on a lot which is more valuable than the comparable. This means, all else being equal, the subject property should be worth more than the comparable. The subject property should be worth more than $250,000. The appraiser will then adjust the sales price of the comparable sale to represent the difference between the comparable sale and the subject property. Assume the lot size difference is worth $25,000. If the adjustment is $25,000, the appraised value based on the comparable sale would be calculated as follows. $250,000 sales price for the comparable, plus $25,000 adjustment for the difference in lot, $275,000 adjusted value for the subject. In our example, the amount of the adjustment was completely arbitrary and only for illustrative purposes. The actual amount of the adjustment is determined by market conditions and appraisal guidelines. The only examples where we use actual appraisals are where we involve actual adjustment numbers. Even when we use an actual appraisal as an example, the adjustment numbers should not be used as a guideline for any other property. Adjustments are often specific to a certain market. Let's review another example. The subject property has the following characteristics. Size, 1,800 square feet. Garages, 2. Lot size, 0.30. Bedrooms, 3. An appraiser finds a comparable sale with the following characteristics. Size, 2,000 square feet. Garages, 2. Lot size, 0.30 acres. And bedrooms, 3. So let's compare the two homes now. Garage is the same, size of lot the same, and bedrooms the same. Note the square footage is the only difference. Assume the comparable sold for $300,000. The subject property is identical to the comparable in every respect except size. The subject property is smaller than the comparable sale. What may we assume about the value of the subject property? The subject property should be worth less than a comparable sale. Assume the value of the difference in square footage is $20,000. The subject property should be worth $20,000 less than the comparable sale. The calculation for value of the subject property is shown below. $300,000 sales price for the comparable, $20,000 adjustment for the size difference, $280,000 would be the adjusted value for the subject property. Appraisers will usually include at least 3 comparable sales in an appraisal report. The comparables should be as similar to the subject as possible. Appraisers are not allowed to use a comparable sale if a better comparison can be found. Let's illustrate. Assume the subject property is under contract for $400,000. If the appraiser looks a few streets over, they're able to find a comparable property which sold for around $400,000 and would justify the sales price for the subject. However, several comparables on the subject property street sold for around $350,000. The appraiser could justify the $400,000 sales price if they use the comparables from a few streets away. If the comparables are used from the same street as the subject, the sales price may not be justified. The appraiser will usually not be able to ignore comparable sales like the ones on the subject street. If the appraiser feels there's a justifiable reason to ignore the sales, they must document and support their reasoning. If the appraiser selects 3 comparables, the report will contain 3 adjusted values for the subject property. The appraiser must then reconcile the 3 values to come up with the final opinion of value based upon the sales comparison approach. The sales comparison approach is used for any type of property for which comparable sales may be found. As we stated earlier, it is the preferred method for single-family homes and other residential properties, and comparable sales are often plentiful. The sales comparison approach may also be used on commercial properties, although comparable sales may be more difficult to find depending on the market. While appraisers often focus on the comparable sales approach with residential properties, it is only one of the 3 methods used when appraising commercial and other types of properties.